Welcome to Fiction and Focus, a podcast where we explore the craft of writing without taking ourselves too seriously. I'm Nathan Harms.
And I'm Wesley Watts. Each episode, we'll discuss uplifting topics like the soul-crushing pressure of expectations, the suffocating grip of self-doubt, and the swift-kicking unmentionables of rejection.
We'll share our experiences, struggles, and heartaches in the hope that you might find some small measure of comfort in our collective misery, or at least have a laugh at our expense.
So grab a pen, paper, and your favorite writing snack, and join us as we put fiction in focus.
Welcome to Fiction in Focus. I am Nathan Harms, and we have Wesley Watts. Welcome to episode 5. If you'll notice, there are not 2 of us here today. There is 3. And so it is our pleasure to have on our first guest of the podcast, Andrea Rose Washington.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
She's going to teach us so much about motivation. But before we start, Andrea, would you mind kind of telling us a little bit about what you do, what you write, what you like to write, and all that good jazz?
I am very excited to tell you guys about myself because I love talking about myself. So my name is Andrea Rose Washington, and I am an indie author. And I have been in this space for about 7 to 8 years. And I've been taking it seriously for like the last 5. So there's some shifts and changes that have been happening. I've been growing. But I write fiction from the point of view of a Black person. I like to see us in space. I like to see us do magic. I like to see us do so many different things that I got to read growing up. And so I like to write stories where you can just drop in on your lunch break, read it, love it, and then come out and you don't really have a book hangover. Because I love my book hangover books, but I do just love some quick snippets where you can just go in, dive into a world, and just be with the character, and then come out and then go about your day and just like, wow, that was an amazing story. And those are the type of stories that I write. I currently have 4 series out. One's a standalone. 2, I have 2 books in the series, and then I have a short story book that just came out. So I am just writing and having fun while doing it.
Is the short story book the one that I'm reading, Scenes Out of Place?
Yes. It's behind me. I just wanted everyone to see it. This is my baby. This book took about almost 10 years to complete because all of these scenes live differently in my head. And I don't write stories until I know exactly where the story is going. And all of the scenes in this book, this is all I have for them. Years have gone by, and this is the only part of the story that I felt led to tell. And I don't know why until now, because they all fit into Scenes Out of Place. They fit because they are collections and scenes from the mind of Andrea Rose Washington. So you get everything from Dragon's Reawakening to Surviving in Space when you didn't ask to be there. But if you do like sci-fi, I do have a book called Elendil. She's in space. There's intergalactic war and all that stuff. Or if you like urban fantasy, go check out my book, Amatry's Magic. It's in DC, politics, maybe a little magic. Or a girl on the run from a magical hit squad. So I write everything.
Very cool. I plan on reading the sci-fi next. But the short stories are very cool. Oh, I'm sorry, Nathan.
No, I was going to say, I remember those run-throughs of those books that I heard for 4 days straight this last year.
That is smooth delivery.
So smooth.
I'm going to teach you guys about that today.
I like it. I love it.
Thank you.
So, correct my math. So that would be, you have 7 books out? Is that correct?
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 books.
7 books?
Oh my gosh. No, I have 6 books. The 7th book is a journal. I have a reading journal out for people. But I have 6 books, and then, 7 physical things you can buy from me.
So 6 books in how many years? You said 7?
About 7 years, yes.
And the first couple weren't as serious. So you're putting out roughly like 1 a year.
Well, when I say serious, I mean I wasn't taking my writing career seriously. I was writing for the fun. Like, I still write for the fun of it, but I was not trying to make a full career out of it where I was like, all right, I have a 5-year plan and we're going to figure this out and we're going to do these conventions and we're going to track everything. I wasn't on that road until until a couple years ago. So we're picking up speed and some steam, but it's getting there, and I've learned a lot, and I'm very excited to see where I'm in another 5 years.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, me and Andrea, we met this last summer at Fan Expo here in Denver, Colorado.
Yes.
She was our neighbor.
Yes.
And what struck me is as we were there for just a few minutes setting up, you say your quick hellos and nice to meet you and introduce yourself. And the first people that came up, she said, "Do you like to read?" And they said yes. And she said, "What kind of stuff do you like to read?" And I went, "Crap, that's our line." And I knew it was going to be a really fun 4 days because I feel played off of each other so much and had so much fun and celebrated each other's victories and just kind of connected on a level professionally that doesn't always happen at events. Once in a while you have those neighbors that are, they're fine. They're nice people, but you either feel bad for them because they don't really know how to sell themselves or there's maybe some kind of barrier there. But I think we hit it off pretty much
we
immediately.
Did. I was absolutely upset that you guys lived in Denver and you didn't live closer to me. I bought your book for my nephew. He read it. He enjoyed it.
Very cool.
You guys were a very fun neighbor, and I really enjoy that because going to conventions it's about selling and meeting your fan base and making a fan base. Yep. But it's also about meeting people in the community. It's also meeting the people, your peers, and seeing what they're doing. If you see my table change and maybe has a little shelf that you did, no, you didn't.
Yep.
But it's about making those connections because we're all sort of on the same level of trying to get ourselves out there, trying to promote. And one thing I liked about being next to you, because you're right, it's very rare that I was selling for you and I wasn't upset if they weren't getting my book, because if you're not interested in my stuff, I'm not going to get the sell anyway. But if you're interested in my friend's stuff, I can at least get someone else who I know is worthy of your money to get a sell, enjoy it. Yeah. And we were doing that for each other.
Oh yeah.
And that doesn't really happen all the time. And I enjoyed that.
Absolutely. It's a cool community too, because you do see that where I'll see someone with the table the next time, or they see us with our table next time, and we have a new banner placement or something that looks very similar to what they did, because we do that. We see, oh my gosh, that works so well. Oh, I really like how you did this. I like how you pitched that. I like how you set this out. And we borrow ideas from each other because we can see what works, and we're always refining and all that. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. And what struck me is, for how long you've been doing it, you had a lot of books, and not just little guys. They're not little guys. They're books, and me, I write a lot of novellas and stuff like that, so ours are a little bit shorter, but to have that much output in that amount of time is, as you know, in the community, kind of rare.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people. We would remark at a lot of the middle-aged straight white men who were sitting around us who had one book that they'd worked on for 17 years.
He's calling me out already.
No, I'm not.
I will say, I remember from years ago, and I can't remember the author's name, but my old manager from years ago talked about this guy who spent his entire life writing one book. Yeah. And it was amazing. And then after he died and people were cleaning out his house, they found so many copies of that book, of so many iterations of it to where it got to that final piece. And so I'm not going to knock 100%, But like, because you gotta start somewhere. I started with one
Right,
book. I
right.
started with one, but we're gonna talk about that one offline.
No, I think it's just a. I think you've really married yourself into the process of moving from thing to thing to thing because you know your
Yeah.
craft is always growing and always getting better. And again, I'm not knocking someone that has one book that they've worked their whole life on or anything like that. But I will say, if you want to grow your craft, just keep writing. If you love to
Yeah.
write,
Yeah.
especially, just keep going. And
Well, as far as those one book people go, like if that's your store, you can't expect to sell much if you have one product.
right, yeah, absolutely. So anyway, moving on to motivation is what we're going to be talking about in episode 5 today. And that's why we're having you on here, because I feel like you can really bring something into the conversation.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So kind of the first topic I want to go over, and we have a few of them, is what essentially motivates you to write? Because that's really the first step, the first process that someone who wants to go on this journey goes into. How many people do you meet in your life that want to write a book? Lots of people. I've worked with them. I've met them many times. You meet them at conventions when they're buying your books, and I've been working on something. I want to do something, but to actually sit down, commit words to screen. Instead, I can't say paper because typewriters are no longer a thing.
They should
And
be.
to actually write everything and click the end and press that book and have it in your hand. What motivates you to do this? Not only one time, but now several times, I guess would be my question.
So there are a couple of answers to this, and I'm gonna try and keep it short and like concise.
Eh.
The first answer to it is I want characters that look like me and doing things that I want them to do. And I'm not saying there are not books out there that have black characters, but they weren't doing what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to space. I wanted to experience magic. I wanted to, oh my God, dragons. Like I want those stories. And for the most part, those are not the stories that were being told while I was growing up where I was the lead. We were the best friend. We were the plot armor. We were the cannon fodder. We were so many other things, but we weren't the lead in the sci-fi stories. We weren't the lead in the magic stories. And I want to be Harry Potter. Like, I absolutely want to be Harry Potter. And so I started writing my stories because I wanted to read them. And every story that I write the main character is a version of me. And she's living out a story idea that I wish I could have done. She's living out a story idea that I wish I could have read. It's all a part of me. And then my niece was born. I have 2 nephews, but like I have a little niece now, and she's 2. And I like I'm gonna cry. She's now in a little faking like she can read now, and so I caught her holding my sci-fi book, fake reading it, and it was just like, I want this for you. I want you to always grow up and see yourself on the covers. My nephew, my older one, who's 9, he was reading my short story book when it came in, and he was just like, I like this. And he's like, you wrote this, Auntie? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I like this. And like, I want my niece and nephews, I want my family members, and I want like other people growing up when I'm at conventions, they're like, I never thought, like, I didn't know we could do this. I've had literal people say that to me. Like, I didn't know we could do this. Like, I've never had a book where I was the main character. And it's a thing that we want and we need and we should have. And so I decided I'm going to tell those stories. And then I met a lot of people in the community who are doing the same. And for whatever type of story they needed to be the lead of, I've seen it for all the different... for everyone who is othered in some way or another, I've seen it where they're writing the stories from their perspectives because it's not the stories that they're getting to see in books or in TV or any other medium. And so those 2 main reasons are the reason or my
That's
motivation
fantastic.
for finishing my story. Thank you.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Absolutely. No, I think that speaks loads to the output that you have because you are so passionate about it. It's not just I want to write a story. It's I want to write a story that represents something that I wish I could see when I was growing up, and
Yeah.
so on. So I think that's pretty cool. I really I connect with when you're talking about like your nieces and your nephews and family members reading your stuff. I mean, that's really why me and my brother had started writing originally, was because I had a kid, and we started with the kids' books simply because I was like, I want him to have someone, as he's growing, that's like, hey, my dad did this. But it turns into a passion. You start writing the books you wish you could read.
Yeah.
And so on. Wesley, why? What is your motivation to continue to write besides just straight up cash and money?
It's the money. It's the money. For me, it's just a compulsion. So I have to do something creative, whether that's music or writing or some kind of art, something. If I'm not creating something, I get depressed and feel like crap about myself. So
Yeah.
I don't even really necessarily love doing these things. Like there's parts about them I love, but there's a lot of it I actually really hate. But it's like you do this or you suffer. So I do it.
That's awesome.
But as what you were saying kind of struck me, because I write almost the opposite. There's more than enough representation of me. So all of my main characters are something other than me.
I like that.
We don't need more, white dudes doing stuff all the time. Like, there's nothing wrong with it, but we've got enough.
I mean, I can name a few. I think I can name a few.
So yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was really cool though. The representation, it really matters.
Yeah.
And it's every convention without fail, someone comes up to me, and if not me, if I'm selling with someone else, and just like I feel seen, and I'm just like, thank you. I'm glad you feel seen, because you should.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's I love when we have neighbors who are writing from a different viewpoint, whether it's their sexual orientation, race, gender, regardless of anything. For us, it's always so eye-opening to talk to people because you can delve into their psyche a little bit and understand it too, and the passions behind it, and making sure that you're me doing the same thing, not always just writing myself. I mean, I'm not a one-eyed 12-inch tall purple alien, but at the same time,
Are you sure about that?
I'm not.
Do we know that for sure? Have you tried taking that skin off?
Right.
What's under there?
But at the same time, we do have representation even within our like young sci-fi series, where we do have characters who aren't straight, who aren't maybe identify with a specific gender, so on and so forth. So like even just thinking about it from that mindset is really, I think, really helpful.
Yeah.
And so and done in the right way too. It doesn't feel pandering in the sense that
Yes.
like there's some authors out there that would be like, well, I have a black character in my book, let me tell you. And
Oh, I've met some of those.
yeah, me too. And I'm like, does that, like, am I supposed to like your, like, and like I'm you know what I mean? And it's just like they're checking a box. But I appreciate absolutely your passion behind it, and it shows. It shows when you talk about your books. It shows when you talk about the reasons why you write your books and all that, in person and on the podcast. So I very much appreciate that. It's when you come in at these conventions and you're hitting like day 3 and the coffee hasn't quite kicked in and you're just exhausted from talking and your throat hurts from talking so much, to walk into a convention and have a neighbor like Andrea there who can just be like, hey, it's day 3, she's dancing over there, and I'm just like, oh God. But that's what you need. And
I've had 3 coffees by then.
I do want to push back on something a little bit though.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you said you were putting yourself in those places that you wanted to be, in space. You want to be Harry Potter, those kind of things. But I'm reading Scenes Out of Place.
Mm-hmm.
So what makes you want to be in a really bad spot in a zombie apocalypse?
Because that is my fear. Everyone has one irrational fear in life, right? Like, it's one thing where you just, like, you have preppers, you have people who have, like, who build bomb shelters, doomsday center. Zombies are my fear. I don't know when it's going to happen, but a version of zombies are going to happen. That is my one irrational fear. And so I have a plan. And in Scenes Out of Place, that is one way I felt like it going, of like how, like, if you lived near a military base, you felt safe there, and then now you figure out how to go, like how, like, it's not always like The Walking Dead where you're just like, oh my god, pack up the thing, let's go. Like, sometimes you have a different type of plan. And then how do you deal with the loss, and how would I deal with the loss of my friends throughout the time? How would you go crazy? Would you kill other people without even thinking about it, because you think is either kill or be killed, and you don't know who you're getting when it comes up? So yes, zombies are my one irrational fear.
Okay.
And I don't ever want to be in a zombie apocalypse. But if I am, I have a plan, people.
That's awesome. I think I remember you talking about that when we were at the convention too. You were like sitting there and you were like thinking, you're like, like I can't remember exactly how it came up, but I feel like we've had this conversation.
Yeah, we did. I know what scene I know what scene I thought of in Denver, because I texted my friend. I was like, "Can I use your name?"
That's awesome. So the next topic is kind of, I want to talk about schedule. Mm-hmm. So you're doing this really as a career now, or trying to make it into a career now. You take it very seriously. What does your schedule look like? Do you have like a set schedule, like I write from this time to this time, or how does that look for you?
So right now I still have a day job that pays 90% of my bills. So I'm becoming more strict with my writing schedule, my creativity schedule. I can work from home if I want to, but I don't, specifically to allow myself time to have like a writing space. Like, I leave my work at work, I can come home into my office, and I can write. So please, listeners, when you listen to this, please understand what I mean when I say these next words. I am a fan of using AI to schedule my stuff for me. I use it for content calendar. I use it for like, here's everything I'm trying to get done in the year of 2025. What is the best schedule of trying to get all of this done? I use it for, hey, how often should I post on Instagram and Facebook? And then I take those schedules, I review them, I plug them into my actual like phone calendar with my work schedule and convention schedules, and then like I sort of plug it in together. And so so for my third book in my Elendil series, I'm currently working on that. And so I was like, I have about 15 chapters in this book. I want to be done by this time. I will be traveling for like 2 weeks this month. Can you give me a writing schedule? Because sometimes I need to not think about it myself. Sometimes I do so much with my day job, because I am a project manager in my day job, so it does sort of help translate into the planning process. But then I use the reminders app, and I put all of my schedule in my reminders app, and I'm like, okay, this is due this day, this is due this day, this is due this day. Chapters 1 and 2 needs to be done dictation by Saturday this day, and then chapters 4 and 5 need to be done on whatever day I have. And I try to keep to that schedule. A help about that is I now have like 5-minute meditation times. So when I get home from work, I go in my room, close the door, put on my Spotify like lo-fi music for like 5 to 10 minutes, and I have like a decompress situation where I can decompress from the day. I can leave all of my work in the car, or leave it in the office. The drive home, I'm listening to relaxing music or like fun music, nothing stressful. to help my brain turn from day job to writing. And so I work on that, and then I give myself like maybe 3 days a week where I'm full creative mode, and I always give myself Sunday off because I need a break. I need a break on some day. But like if I say I'm working on something writing on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, no matter what, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, something is getting accomplished writing wise. And then maybe randomly on Tuesday or Monday, if I'm like, oh, this is a great scene, I'll open up my voice note app and I'll just say the exact scene out the way I see it in my head, let it transcribe, and I'll deal with it when I have time to deal with it. Because not having a schedule sort of made me feel like I was always behind. But building that schedule, getting the content calendar, knowing when, okay, on Thursdays, we're going to post everything for the next month. And we're going to like schedule it. And trying to post to Instagram every week on my own is not going to work. But like setting it in the calendar for 5 weeks out, perfect. And if I want to add something randomly on a day, I can do that. But scheduling, I do use AI to help me schedule. I am the fan of any type of project management software that you can get your hands on that will help you keep your schedule. There are some great ones. Asana is free. Also, Reminders app is already on your phone if you have an iPhone. But like, I am a fan of getting everything out, arranging it into like one large calendar, and then putting it in your phone, and then you just have to be strong enough to keep to it.
Fair. So you're saying you like to go with the flow.
I wish. I used to, which is why it took me 2 years to do one book one time, because I was going with the flow.
No, it's a really, really good set of advice there. My brother does it when he does illustrations, especially with what spreads have to be done by certain dates. Especially if we want to hit a timeline, like we have a big show coming up in December and we want to have our 4th book out or whatever. But we need time to, upload it and review it and do the whole process and get in the order of books and, all the extra stuff. And so we have our drop dead date. It has to be done by this date. Split it up. That means 3 spreads a day, blah, 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 blah. And then the reward that we usually use is if you can get ahead of that, then you can have a day off. But
I do have one advice that it's like common knowledge, but I've noticed sometimes when I talk to people, they don't always know it's common knowledge. It comes from my project management background, which is probably the only reason I realized it. But work, like how you said, you have a show in December. Work from your final date. If you want your book available at whatever event, so like if I wanted a book for New York Comic Con out and I needed a new one, which I do actually do that, I need that. But if I need, it's like, okay, New York Comic Con is October 15th. I don't know if it's actually October 15th. I'm just throwing out a date. And I know it's going to take me 3 weeks to get my books ordered to me, meaning it has to be at the printers by September 20th, and then to make sure I have like fill-in time. And then before that, I need to get it to an editor. The editor needs 2 weeks. And then like just keep back dating all of your work from the drop dead date of when you need it. And that sort of also helps build your schedule. So like if you're like the type of person who wants to do everything yourself, just remember you have to build backwards sometimes instead of trying to build forwards. If you need something by September and you need 10 months to do it and it's January, then you're not going to have it done by September. So build backwards. And that's what I'm sort of doing this year as well. Like I gave the AI, I was like, this is the deadline of when I want these books done. I want 3 books done this year. Can you give me a schedule that I can manage with all of these things? And then with content on like days I need to post for content. Like I thought of my own content, but like days I need to post. And it just sort of, I worked that way because I needed a time. It was a lot. It's a lot running your own schedule for that. Oh, yeah. So yeah.
Well, especially when you still have your day job.
Yes.
If the carrot at the end of the line is, this is my career and I need to pay my mortgage, probably a lot of incentive to write your book.
Yes.
But if it's, like you were saying, it accounts for a very small amount. In the last 2 years, I think we've started to really like kind of put money back in our own pockets.
Yeah.
And which, yay, it's a success, but it's not enough to quit the job. So,
Oh yeah, no, this is paying for itself.
yeah,
I need to pay for other
absolutely,
stuff.
absolutely. Yeah, so I mean, I generally kind of operate the same way you do, a little bit looser, but fairly close to that. I like to have a bit of a schedule, and I usually do base it around events that are coming up. I know, like for Fan Expo this year, I want to have one more book out that I'm working on currently, and I'm ahead of schedule on, so I'm not pushing it as hard. But yeah, no, it's solid advice, Wesley.
Get me on the spot here.
Yeah, well, because here's the thing: because we all write a little bit different, and to take advice from each other and stuff like that. What is kind of? I know you like to write in the mornings.
I'm mainly just taking this in because this is the stuff that I need. I'm not particularly good at this sort of thing. I did work backwards with my last book, like once the first draft was done, because that's a long story. But getting that first draft, I had some struggles to get through that, and just getting that accomplished was like a huge personal milestone for me. But once that part was done, I basically just said, okay, this is going to be my release date, and I set it for, I don't remember what it was. It was like 15 months or something like that to get editing, drafts, artwork, all that stuff, reviews, all that stuff set up ahead of time. And just ended up having extra time. I had like 3 months where I didn't have to do anything with the book because everything was ready to go, and
Yeah,
it wasn't releasing for another 3 months. But that's much better than I did with albums, where you're scrambling to get.
I don't know if you remember this, but for our CD release show that your band played at with us, our CDs showed up and from the printer and had the wrong music on it. Had another band's music on it.
Oh, I do remember that.
Yeah. And so we were on the phone with this company, and we were on the phone with them. I don't even know, like, on hold for, like, hours to try to get this, like, sorted for, like, a couple days. And they took care of it, and we were able to go through, but we had to open up each CD individually and trade out the disc in order to make the CD release show. So I've never had anything like that with the book, knock on wood. But because of that scheduling advice, it is a great feeling, though, to get almost to the finish line and realize that you can slow down a little bit. You have a little bit of extra time, some room to breathe.
Yeah.
I've actually found a couple of really bad typos because of that I missed on every time anybody had looked at it, editing, all that stuff. Because I had a little bit of extra time before we were ordering in the books, and just gave it one more read through. I was like, look at that egregious, horrible error that everybody missed, including myself many times. And so that is definitely something pretty awesome. So
I do have a trick for that, and because I am the queen of reading what is supposed to be there and not what is there. I now,
Right.
on the final list, like the first round for edits and then the final listen before it goes to like upload, I do the read out loud function on like Word.
Same.
Like
Same.
it has to be, and I don't look at the screen, like the computer's
Yep.
behind me, and I'm just listening to tell the story, and it's like, oh, that's wrong. Or
Yep.
like, oh, that was not supposed to happen. Because anytime I've done that, if I find anything in the story after that, I'm like, look, and then you were supposed to be there. Because if the read out loud function didn't read it correctly, you were meant to be there. And I've caught so many small little though and there type things,
Yeah,
or through and
yeah.
though
Yeah.
type like misses that your brain's like, oh yeah, it's the correct word.
Yep.
Read out loud function, people.
Oh yeah.
Love it.
No.
I actually-
use it.
I had that with a very expensive version. I hired a narrator to do the audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's doing like one chapter at a time and sending them to me. And I'm like, man, that was a mouthful. Like, she reads this long ass sentence and like struggles to get through. I'm like, I need to break that up, don't I? So like, I'd be sending her messages being like, I'm rewriting this. Can you re-record this? Or she caught like 3 or 4 typos for me. And word repetition that kept like would pop up, or I don't remember what word it was, but there was a particular word that I kept using.
Mine is
So-
really.
Mine is truly. We all have our word
Those
our word
LYs.
bugs. Well, you kind of mentioned like coming home from work and doing like a meditation before you start, and so I kind of was curious. I had this on my list too. Is a safe space to write, and basically, what is the optimal environment that puts you in the mood to write, to be creative, the perfect conditions, if you will. You have your schedule, obviously. You have your moment where you can separate yourself from work. What does it look like when you sit down to write your stories? Do you have a certain kind of music playing? Do you have are you wearing special socks? I don't know. What does that look like for you?
So the best days for me to write actually are probably a day where I don't have to go to work beforehand. Like I was off that day. So normally it's like a Saturday or Friday. Don't tell my boss. But it's so like during the week I'll plan out everything that I'm going to write on Saturday. So like I'll like figure out scenes and stuff. And so for me, the perfect time to actually, this is going in the book, this is going to be uploaded to Scrivener, this is not just on my Remarkable tablet where I'm like, this is a scene I'm going to work on, all that stuff. I will wake up, I will do whatever needs to be done ahead of time. So like I will say, you know what, I'm going to start writing at 2:00 today. So that means workout, shower, breakfast, errands, all of that is done, dusted, finished, and handled. So that way I don't have to worry about it. I don't do like, I will clear off my desk. Anything that looks like it's distracting is away. My TV's off. I can't listen to music with words in it because then I will just start jamming to the song.
Same.
So I do like lo-fi music. I'll go to YouTube or I'll do the Spotify and like just some lo-fi background music. I'll set a timer for like an hour. And for my first draft, I've started using dictation for the first draft. A mix of handwriting it on my Remarkable tablet and then dictation for the first draft. And then the second draft is when I go through and type everything. Because your first draft sucks.
Right.
No one should ever read your first draft, and you should never publish your first draft. And so for me, it's about getting everything out. It doesn't have to be pretty. If I'm missing quotation marks, if I'm missing punctuation, if things are not, if it missed words, doesn't matter. I'm not going in to edit anything. I'm literally just like, this is chapter 1. This is scene 1. This is what Aubriana is going through. And I will speak out every single voice. I will speak out every single character. And then when when my timer goes off, I'll get up, walk around, stretch my fingers, even though I was like doing dictation. I don't care what it is, like stretch, get the blood flowing again. Like I'll do like a 10-minute break and then I will come back, turn the music back on, do it for another hour. And I'm not consistently talking for an hour, but like I will sort of sometimes close my eyes and I'll just I'll just say the scene in my head as I see it. And, like for scenes out of place, there is a zombie scene in there with a girl named Devin, I think I named her. And I did that entire scene with my eyes closed. And then I just went back and I fixed it and did the editing and did all of those things after the fact. But like the first draft was just, I need to get everything out. And then I don't say my book in order. I say it in the order I see it in my head and then I put it in order later. But for me, it's about a space that is like free of just any type of distractions, which is why there can't be any words playing. The moment the TV comes on, even if it's Murder, She Wrote, and I've seen that show 100 times, I'm still gonna be like, no, he did not, and I'm gonna forget. And so it sort of helps also that I do dictation because no other words can be in the room because otherwise my word is gonna pick it up. So that is like my perfect spot. And then I'll go into I try to do like 5 to 6 hour sessions on Saturdays if I have nothing else planned that day except writing. And then when the 6 hours is up, I will stop unless I'm like on a roll. I'm like, I need this next chapter to be done. But I notice sometimes that when I try to force it and get everything out, then I burn out, and then I won't touch it for like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So 6 hours is the max, and if I get to maybe hour 4, and I'm like, you know what, that's everything I needed to do for today. Like, Aubriana's done. She needs me to take a break. She's like, hold up, let me breathe before we go to the next chapter. And then, yeah, that's how I do my sessions.
I love it. That's
Very
awesome. Wesley, what about you? What's kind of like your setup? If you're sitting down to write, is there like, do you want all 16 cats that you guys have in the room with you?
I
Or
usually have Mao down here. She's down here right now. She's got her little house. But she likes to be near me, but she doesn't bother me. I try to keep the other ones away though as much as possible. But yeah, I do need things to be like, I don't know, I'm a little bit OCD on that respect. Like I need the right lighting. I need to feel comfortable and have all my stuff where it's supposed to be. If it's out of place, it screws me up. Which I didn't used to be that way. Back when I was a writer a long time ago before the head injury, I could write anywhere. I don't know what changed. But yeah, so now I need everything kind of like the way it's supposed to be. I do listen to music. I've got a bunch of playlists that there's a YouTube writer, booktuber named Abby Ebbins that creates these playlists. They're like, they're all for a particular type of mood or scene or anything like that. They have vocals, and there's some of them are songs that you might know, but they're like they're pitched down and reverbed. So the voices, they're there, but you don't really pick up on the words necessarily. I really like those, or I'll listen to like lo-fi music just like you, things like that on YouTube. Usually just write straight into Scrivener, and that's about it. I know you use Word like a pleb.
I do. I love my Word. I like as much distraction as possible. Same thing. No, it is, for me, I can write pretty much anywhere, regardless, as long as I have headphones in. And I have certain artists and music. Most of it is instrumental piano music, usually creepy kind of gothic-y stuff, soundtracks, stuff like that I have in my little Amazon Music playlist. But I mean, that's kind of all I need. There are times if I'm writing like a certain, like a very intense scene or like something that's supposed to be scary or something, that I kind of purposely I'm gonna write it at like 2 a.m. or something, like I want to get like that vibe going. But that's pretty rare. So I said I use Word. It's pretty much what I use. Word, Grammarly. There's a couple other things I use in there too. But what are your apps of choice, or your you mentioned AI for like scheduling and stuff like that. I'm not knocking that at all, by the way. I actually have recently been using AI to analyze documents for plot holes, which is kind of fun. Most of it's gibberish and doesn't really matter, but I've gotten a couple really good nuggets out of there where they're like inconsistency in age or description, stuff like that, and you're like, oh, that is true. So that's kind of fun. So I think they're like, and we're going to do this on a future episode where we talk about AI as a tool versus a crutch, right?
Yeah.
And I think there is definitely room for it. But what are your kind of preferred apps and so on that you use?
So, I'm both a Word and a Scrivener person. When I edit in Scrivener. But when I go through after the first draft, I'll like start putting everything in Scrivener. Like quotations, punctuation. Okay, I want the sentence to go this way. I do all of that in Scrivener. I don't know if you have the Mac version, but I have the Windows version, and so I feel like it doesn't do everything the Mac version does of Scrivener. And so with the Word, that's when I like their dictation and their read out loud function better on Word than I do on Scrivener. So I only use Word for that, but like it lives forever. Like nothing's saved in Word. Everything, like all the dictation, the raw footage, or the raw words, just all right, Scrivener, there you go. Because it keeps track of all my word count for me, gives me my little session goals for the day. I can put all the books. I can put like all 3 stories in one file, and it lives there. And I have backups on backups on backups.
You can even put your playlist in there too.
See, I'm learning new
I have
things.
my playlist in my Scrivener folder.
I love that. I didn't know I could do that. So those are like my 2 main writing apps. I use Grammarly religiously. So once everything's done and I've gone through and and I'll do my edits, I'll just I'll compile it, export it, and then upload that to Grammarly and be like, hey.
Yeah.
Did you say Nathan, you said you use Grammarly as well?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I tried Pro Writing Aid and it just wasn't.
That's the one I use.
I guess I think I learned Grammarly first, and so my brain's like, I can only know how to use one of these things.
Yeah.
And so I have Pro Writing Aid and I have Grammarly right now, and I don't know which one I'm not going to renew when the time comes up, just because to me, they're all a form of, not to not to go early into your AI conversation, but they're all tools and they're all AI in some type of way to sort of help you improve.
And they're very similar too. Those two are very similar. The UI is basically different.
So those are like my tools that I use because, and then sometimes, please again, understand how I am saying this, authors. Please do not, and readers, please do not hate me. I have used ChatGPT to figure out how to write fighting scenes because I don't always know how to write fighting scenes. In my head, I see the battlefield and I see the amount of people, and I'm like, I just can't figure out how to make that work. And so I'm like, can you give me examples of different scenes of how to make this work? And then I can read it and I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. And then I can do it my own way. Like I'll then okay, I know how to do this story now. And I can write it now because I understand it in a different way. Because it gives like, oh, you should think about making sure this happens, or this is what they would experience. And it's like things I didn't necessarily think about for my character. And then sometimes for the male characters, I'm like, how would a guy act to this? Because I'm not a guy. And I'm just, I'm not a space prince. I'm not a space prince who has lived his life in luxury. And so sometimes like, how would he, like for military strategy, I'll go to my brothers first because they're both in the military. And I'm like, hey, I have this war that I'm trying to figure out. How do you fight a war?
And go.
And go. And so like they'll coach me through all the big stuff, but like the small little nuanced things, I'm just like, do I really want to call my brother at whatever time I'm randomly writing today to ask him how they would circle them up? And like, no. And I'll just like go and like, how would this scene happen? And then I'll get a couple ideas and like, it makes sense now. My brain can see it in my book because it can't write my story because it can't write it in my words and it's not me, but it helps me see my characters in a different way. And I'm like, oh, that's how I can do it. And then I can go and like do the dictation of like, and now this person is happening this and this is this and all of that. And so I use all of those apps to improve my to help me write.
Well, and that's the interesting thing, and when we have that conversation, it'll come up then too. Is if you're using a tool to refine your process or to be able to see things clearly with your head, I don't consider that cheating. I consider that respecting your audience in the sense that when they read it, they're like, "That makes sense," versus like, "Wait, I thought you said this person was here and this was here and that was there." But that doesn't make sense with this. So sometimes having that bird's eye view of things, I found it's pretty helpful. And like you touched on before, if you're using Word, the spelling and grammar function in Word, it's still a form of AI in a weird way, right? Like, yeah. So it's how far do you want to go with it? And
there is a line. I do believe there is a line, but let's not start that episode now because I have a funny tidbit offline for you guys.
Okay. maybe we'll have to have you on when we do end up doing that episode.
Yeah, for sure. So the last topic I want to cover on today's podcast is how do we all deal with writer's block or long stretches of being unmotivated? How do we get back in the saddle, back in the words?
We cry
we
under our
cry.
covers. And we
I do that a lot.
sob and we hold the books that we have done near and dear. And we just say, this is all I'm going to have. And no one's going to love me anymore. No. For me, I let my characters talk to me. And sometimes they don't talk to me. And I've noticed when I have those writer's block is because I'm just trying to finish the story. And I'm not trying to tell the story.
Yeah.
And whenever I'm just trying to finish the story, and so I'm like, I want to move on to something new, my character's like, oh, well then, we were here first. We got you here. How are you going to just ignore how are you just going to ignore us and not finish our story and not tell our story correctly because you're ready and excited for the new thing that you want to do that you haven't even started yet. We built your fan base. Focus on us. And I'm like, you're right. You're right, Aubriana. You're right, Olivia. I heard you. I'm so sorry. And then I focus on telling the story. And so for that, I'll go back and I'll reread the earlier, books 1 and book 2. And I'm like, you know what? I did love this story. Oh my gosh, I fell in love with these characters again. And then I go back to outlining and I'll with pen and paper, my markable tablet, not pen and paper, but it's pen and paper. And I will go back and then I'm like, all right, Aubriana, what's the story? What am I supposed to be telling people? And so I've noticed that every single time I'm just focused on finishing it so I can get on to the next thing, that's when the writer block come. But when I'm just trying to when I focus on telling her story and her experience, that's when they speak to me. And then I can actually, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get that on paper. It's amazing.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, I think the way you phrase that about trying to tell a story versus finish a story is a really cool way of looking at it.
I think we've probably all been there.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah. We're just trying to get to the end because, God damn, it's taking forever and you're just tired. And
mad dash to the finish line. Yep, absolutely. And I think in a similar sense to you, I find myself, and we've talked about this on past episodes, I love the ending of a book. I feel like that's why I write a whole book, is to get to an ending that I have in my head. Sticking the landing is very important to me. So that's usually the motivation that I use to finish something. If I'm having writer's block on a certain scene or chapter or part, I'm like, oh, but just think how great it's going to be to get to that part right there. I use that as that little bit of carrot on a string. But yeah, I've never had anything good come out of me just forcing myself to write a project when I'm not feeling. Now, I will force myself, if I'm having writer's block, I will force myself to write. But it won't be that necessarily. I'll do writing exercises or a short story or something else. Just like any muscle, I'm just like, I have to write something. Even if I don't want to write, I'm not feeling like writing, I'm hating writing right now, I make myself write something that no one will ever see, hear, whatever, and I just to keep it going. And a lot of times that pulls me out of that bit of a slump that I'm in, is what I've found.
I do have 2 book series that might be my 2026 books, strictly because of that when it's all right, Alindo's not coming to me today, Aubriana's mad at me, and it's oh, and then I got this whole cozy mystery story, and then another DC story that my brain's well, let's just focus on these. And then I got enough out of those, and then Aubriana's excuse me, hello, I'm still here.
Forgot about me.
Come back.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
That's great.
But I also still will cry under my covers sometimes.
We all do.
Am I done? Is this it?
Absolutely. We talked a little bit about one thing for me, and conventions do this a lot, is writers are in need of validation for the work that they put out there from people who, especially in the series, come back and buy the second book. Nothing makes me want to write more than being at a convention that we were at the year before, and someone comes up and says, "I bought the first 2 books in your series," or "I bought the first, and I need the next one," or "I need this," or "I need," So I mean, for writers, I find even just an Amazon review will sometimes kick my ass enough to like commit words to a screen, just because that little bit of validation of just like, I write it for myself because I love writing, but to know that someone else has taken their time and respected the time you spent on it, and you've respected the time they're willing to put into reading it, and they can take something away from it, really does motivate you to say, okay, I'm not wasting my life doing this. This is touching someone. Yeah, that's another key for me.
I do have to say, I don't read my reviews online anymore. I read one and it made me cry, and I've never again. Good or bad, like I look to see how many reviews there are, but I will never. I accidentally read one like a year ago. I didn't realize it came from BookBub, and I didn't realize it was a review, and I was just like, she hates me, and I try my hardest not to read reviews. I love, though, when people at conventions, yes, when they come up and it's like, I have all of your stuff. What else do you have? And I'm like,
yep.
Thank you. You like me. You really like me. But no, the one part about being an author that is one of the hardest things is having a thick skin, because you are giving a part of yourself. Like, you're being very vulnerable. And these are, like, even though I write these stories for me to read, and I hope people enjoy them, it's still, I want people to enjoy them.
Right.
And my thick skin is only thick because I refuse to read reviews. But if you're in person and you love my stuff, come talk to me. Let's do this. Let's talk about it.
Right.
Whenever I post on Instagram about my stories and people are like, I love this series. Thank you. I needed that. It keeps me going. But I can't read physical reviews anymore because I had another author friend who told me those aren't for me. They're for other readers.
Yeah.
That's true.
And I was like, you know what? True. Thank you. She's like, but all the comments and everything you get in person, those are for you. But everything online is for other readers. And I'm just like, thank you, because I'm scared.
No, I get that. I totally get that. Wesley, so I know you're kind of a fly on the wall for this episode as far as motivation goes, because like you were saying, that's something you're constantly trying to grow in. But when you do find yourselves in those long stretches of being unmotivated or writer's block, however you want to say it, how you pull yourself out of that? I mean, what's the moment? What's the thing that you think of? That tried and true thing that keeps you coming back besides cash, like we already discussed.
Well, I was kind of debating even talking about it. I figured you were gonna throw this back my way too. But I'm in a bit of a unique situation with that, right? I mean, you know my history, and anybody that reads the acknowledgments in Me and the Machine is going to see, like, because I wrote it out there, what I went through. Just real quick, like, since you don't know, I had a writing career a long time ago that was starting to actually go pretty well, and then I got a head injury, and I actually couldn't write for over like 10 years. So this book is like the first one that I was actually able to stick with and keep going until it was finished. So I guess I'm just in a little bit of weird space with that, because like these little bumps in the road that I do have, like, I haven't written much in the last couple of weeks because of a couple of things and being sick and all that. Like, it sucks, but it also doesn't bother me, because in the scope of like being stuck for 10 years, like,
right,
it does not, it just doesn't matter in comparison. I know now that my brain is working properly, I will get back to it within the next few days, and I will start writing again. So yeah, but I don't really have a lot of tips for that, other than,
have yourself a schedule, get up, do it just like any other job. Like, you don't want to go mow your lawn, but you go do it. I never want to go do my day job, but I do it every day. So if you can sit down and you start writing, if you're not motivated to it, if you're not feeling it, it's probably not going to be your best work. But that's part of what editing is for. Like, just like you said so brilliantly, the first draft is not to read, just to build on. It doesn't matter if it sucks,
Yep.
So that's kind of how I look at it.
No, it's a really good point there.
Yes.
Building off of what Wesley said, I have a saying when it comes to connecting books to your body. The first draft or your bones is just the plot. It's like the framework. It holds it up. The scenes, like the characters, their nervous system, they make your people feel. And then you have the setting is like the clothing and the makeup is what looks pretty. But you need all of those things to make your book look good. So yes.
Now, in this analogy, though, what part of the book would like my Borg cybernetics be?
Those would be the edits, the additions onto it to make it work better.
Nice. Quiffy. I like it. Well, very, very cool. Well, we've loved having you on the show.
Thank you. It was fun.
We'll have to do it again.
Absolutely.
Before we go, though, where can all the peeps on the internet find your books?
So you can find signed copies only in purple, because if it's not in purple, it's not from me, from my website at arwbooks.com. If you are an ebook lover, and I respect that because bookshelves have a finite amount of space, I am on Amazon under Andrea Rose Washington, just Andrea Rose Washington. On all social medias, for the most part, I am Andrea Rose Washington or ARW Books. Either one of those is going to get you to me. I am mostly on Instagram, though, so you can always find me there.
I think you sent us a link tree, right?
Yes, I also sent you guys my link tree.
So I'll make sure that that's in the show notes and the YouTube box, whatever the hell that's called, and all that stuff, too.
Absolutely. Wesley, where can we find your release?
Amazon's usually the best spot.
Sweet. Yep. Just look for Me and the Machine. And for myself, just go to harmspublications.com and that'll get you a link to everything we got out there. So join us next time where it will just be the two of us again, and I apologize for that. I am so sorry. It's not going to be as good. But we thank you so much once again for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Yes.
And we will see you next time.